And okay, recording in progress. I was just informed by my computer. So we'd like to welcome to Caregiving Cafe, the Silverado Barton Springs team. And I will let you introduce yourself a little bit better, but you come very highly recommended by many people. And when regarding memory care. And I know that we have somebody in our audience to attest to that, as well as many others that I have known in the past. So that is the other caregivers who have known in the past, and I have toured there myself. And Silverado is just a very special place in my heart because I used to take my mother over there to be entertained by your wonderful musicians. And man, she rocked that floor. So as did other family caregivers. So thank you for everything you do for our community. I'm just saying Melissa is here and she might still be joining. So we will greet Melissa properly after the presentation. So Michelle Newman, you're the, I'm sorry, I still have you as executive director, but you might have a different title nowadays. So please enlighten us and introduce your team.
My name is Michelle Newman. I'm the senior administrator specialist now. And I have been with Silverado for 5 years. Our company has been in the United States for 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary. And we have communities across the nation, from Alexandria, Virginia to Bellingham, Washington, California, and we will be building in Nevada next.
Wow.
Yes, in Summerlin, yeah. I have worked in this profession for about 35 years. When my dad was stationed here at Bergstrom, my mother worked at a nursing home on William Cannon, and I would go after school and help her at the nursing home. And when Dad would get stationed TDY to Minot, North Dakota, it never failed. It'd be in January and February. Dad had to go to Minot, North Dakota. And down here, of course, in January and February, you can still cut your grass. So I would help at the nursing home and do activities and file and cut the grass and do anything that my mother told me to do. So growing up in this business, it just seems very natural, and it's just what I'm supposed to do. I cared for my dad and my mother at home right at the beginning of 2013, and Dad was on a ventilator at home. It was a portable Niova, so we had our own iFill station at the house. I'd refill his oxygen tanks every day, and it ran off of 50 PSIs, and I managed that with Dad, and then still had to work. So having caregivers that you trust and love and can count on to come to the house every day, that was certainly a struggle. And we live out in the country in Marion, Texas. So not everybody likes to drive out to the country. And then Mom, she is now a double amputee above the knee. She went in for elective knee surgery and developed pseudomonas in the prosthetic devices, and subsequently lost both legs above the prosthesis because of the infections. So she has a vascular dementia and the Parkinson's Lewy body component. She'll see things and hear things that aren't always there. So the experience at home, Dad had a dementia related to the lack of oxygen flow. And so I experienced it from, different perspectives. My approach with Mom and Dad was completely different. Their questions, their day in, day out experiences with the caregivers, I had to treat differently. So having that personal experience and working in this profession each and every day, has taught me a lot. From the daughter perspective and as an administrator perspective, I feel like I can pretty much answer anything you shoot at me. And if not, I can find the answer from Jane or Madison. So we're here to help in any way we can possibly help.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I know that you are, and wow, you certainly have learned a lot, crash course in life, right? Yeah. So Jane, do you want to?
Sure. I've actually worked for Silverado twice. I worked the first time for 10 years in 3 different communities, actually relocated to Austin to open up our Onion Creek location at the time, which was a really neat experience. I kind of got into this because I was with a startup with our Silverado Hospice in Austin, and I was into one of our communities, and they approached me about 3 times, and I really thought, oh, do I want to do this management thing, or do I just want patient care? And I'm really glad I took that chance. It's a great company. I just really believe in our philosophy. So being a hospice nurse, which I stepped down in 15 and went back to hospice nursing. I just around in the Austin area just saw where our model was more effective, where we have licensed nurses around the clock to really do those assessment for residents. And I think it equates to better patient outcomes. I am a registered nurse, and I've been one for a long time. I'm not going to own up to how long. But it's what I loved about Silverado coming in is that we talk about giving our residents life, and I really think we do that. We also manage the dementia process. So we call it our Silverado family, and that involves our residents, it involves our associates, and it involves our resident families. I think we capture it all for them. A big part of our program is engagements. It's getting these residents that quality of life that every single person deserves. And it's making sure they have that normalization. So they're treated, yes, they have a disease, but they're still people, and they can still benefit, and they can still give us things. So it's all about getting into their journey and kind of growing that. So I'll tell a very quick story is when my youngest son, who's an engineer, left university, he kept saying, Mom, why do you work in nursing homes? I'm like, this isn't a nursing home, it's very different. So we had, which we can't have right now because of COVID, one of our wonderful parties that we used to do them quarterly, and it was a lot of work, but it was a whole lot of fun. So we had a luau, and so he came down to help. And it was so funny because on our way home, he just expressed our whole philosophy, which he'd never listened to me before. And I thought he got to see it with his own eyes. And I thought that was, to me, really cool. And I thought, good, somebody who was an engineer, who thought he knew it all, with a lot of growing up to do, got it. And so it kind of helped me really see that we did do something different. And so I look forward, I came back a year ago and was so excited to come back to Silverado. And it was really neat to watch our residents develop from kind of no smiles, nothing going on, to seeing life in the community. So it's been a very busy, unusual year for us in long-term care, but we managed to keep COVID out of this building. And all of our staff and all of our residents must be vaccinated. And I'm so on the bandwagon about everybody being vaccinated. It just blows my mind that people aren't. But it's important. It's the only way that we are going to get through this and move on in our lives. So if anybody hasn't been vaccinated, or you know somebody, really encourage them. So that's my little work with that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And now let's just hear a little bit from Madison, and then we get started with the presentation.
Sure, yeah. My name is Madison Berry. I'm the Director of Resident and Family Services. I'm a licensed master social worker. I actually am newish to Silverado. I did not have previous experience in the Silverado world until we took over this community in August of 2020. my experience is in long-term care, skilled nursing facilities, so kind of that nursing home setting. Kind of the similar to Michelle is that I've always been drawn to that community from being a little kid and doing volunteer work at nursing homes, and then in college, all of my projects, all of my internships, all of my volunteer work, I just couldn't stay away from this geriatric population. My professors would say, well, don't you want to kind of try something else? And I think, well, maybe I will. And then when it came down to it, I just kind of continued to come back. So yeah, so then after I graduated, I went into a director of social services position at a SNF, and then was happy to come on board here. And one thing that I have found for myself, that's a big difference in working in that environment and then working in this environment, is that I have more of an opportunity to really love on the families. I have more time to give them and to devote to these people that have done so much of that heavy load at home. And then now, whenever their loved one moves in, they get to kind of step back into that husband, son, daughter role, which is a tough transition. And you'll always be a family caregiver, but just through all the ups and downs, I really enjoy getting to be a support and offer resources. It really is an honor to get to help everyone. I mean, it takes the whole team, so.
Yes, definitely teamwork. Thank you so much. I'm gonna interrupt the presentation for just 1 minute because I just see Elvia Knoll just joined us. Good morning, Elvia.
Hi.
Hi, I'm so glad that you made it, and I still can't, I don't know if we can hear or if Melissa can hear us, but Elvia, can you just briefly introduce yourself and let us know what you do? She's with Laviasana, and we're hoping to do some projects in the future. So you want to tell us a little bit about Laviasana?
So Laviasana formed in 2009 because I was diagnosed with bipolar earlier, you know, like in 1996, I was diagnosed, but it was very difficult to find treatment. It was very difficult to find doctors and all kinds of things, as many people know. And so when I went into treatment in 2008, my family started talking about doing a nonprofit. They wanted to help people. They wanted to see what they could do. And we started Laviasana. And at first it was very focused on mental health, but then the more we researched and the more we met people and found out different things, I kept finding out that there was a lot of poverty and that poverty overlapped with mental health a lot of times. And from the research that I did related to like food is medicine. It's really detrimental if you don't have stability and you can't feed yourself healthy food. So it was just like, you know, all these problems. And we sort of transitioned into doing things more with basic needs now. And we help different organizations. And one of the projects that we have is called Rainbows Galore. And that's just because I love to write and I love to send cards and I love to get mail and I love to give mail. And so we created this project that was kind of like an outlet for creativity and for just reaching out to people. And we've been doing that for about a year. Last year we did it with Atria Senior Living Center in North Austin. And this year we're just looking to, you know, kind of open it up a little bit and do different projects. And so we're talking about that. I did talk to my team members. Everybody feels really good about it. So hopefully we can get all the details that need to be addressed and start that. We said November, right?
Yeah, we have something up our sleeve and it's good. So
yeah.
Keep you posted. I'm so excited. Thank you. I'm
Sure.
very So yeah, so Elvia approached me about this project and we're happy to bring it to Caregiving Cafe. So thank you so much, Elvia. All right, so did you want to add anything else? Because then we're gonna move on to our presentation.
Well, if anybody wants to reach me for whatever reason, my email is elviasings@gmail.com. ELVIASINGS, just like it sounds, at Gmail. And just let me know it's in reference to this, either Rainbows Galore or Caregiving Cafe, and I will respond in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elvie. I know you're busy and everything, but that's been wonderful news, and we'll be talking more.
Sure.
Soon, okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Say hello to your parents.
Oh, they're awesome.
I know they are. Thank you. All right, okay, so, bye-bye. And, okay, so just wanted to let you know, she'll be heading up. We are going to do this Rainbows Galore at Caregiving Cafe, and details forthcoming. I don't remember if I already sent an email about that, but if I didn't, one is coming soon. So, all right, okay, sorry about that little delay, but here we go. Living with Dementia, brought to you by Silverado Barton Springs.
We really wanted to open up with questions from the families. Where are you having struggles in your journey at home, or neighbors, or let's start it there.
Renee,
Renee,
ask anything?
ask anything.
Yeah,
No,
oh, we can come back to you. You might think of something
Yeah.
as we go
I'll
around.
think, let me think
I
a
always
minute.
have questions, but I don't want to be the one talking all the time. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges was just not being isolated. COVID didn't make this any easier. So we had a core of friends that, stuck by us. And we've got family in town, but everybody's busy. So it's really a challenge, I think, not to get too isolated. Caregiving Cafe, I began before we had to do Zoom meetings, and I was skeptical whether that kind of meeting would, if I needed that. But it was a real godsend to me, and you've been wonderful, especially through this last month, texting and emailing me and keeping up with me. So I think has always been the biggest challenge. And now that, I've transitioned to a little bit different role. But now I come home to an empty house. I had to get in the car to go see my wife, come home to an empty house. I'm talking about all the negatives now. It's not all negative, but I think that's the challenge.
Call to fix the TV set.
I'm sorry.
I think that was down with Taylor.
Oh, okay.
I think you're right. I think this is the thing that we hear all the time, Mike, is that you're so busy trying to get through the day. And sometimes I think that 24-hour caregiver is so overwhelmed, they don't even know where to start to ask questions. So, and I think being males, they have a harder time than some of our females do of going and getting that help, because it's still out there. It's a little bit more accepted, and that's silly. But there are so many things that get missed by, going to all these specialists. Whereas if you get a good gerontologist, it can kind of rein it in and kind of help with medications that are actually going to be effective for the resident and make that caregiving a little bit easier. And I think the hardest thing, I think for any of us, if you don't get a good night's sleep, it's really hard to function. And so often, their world changes where they may be up all night. If they are ambulating, they could be doing some really unsafe things. We hear this all the time. So it's hard. It's just, like you say, you've got family, everybody has somebody that loves them, but they're not living this 24/7. It's really hard. We see that, we see the strain for people, the spousal support person's health often gets compromised as well. It's just very hard. And So getting that assistance, I know Madison does a wonderful support group, which is so important for, she does a spousal one and she does an adult children one, because we talked earlier, that relationship is different and the needs are a little bit different and the concerns are a little bit different. So it just, and it really, we're lucky here in a community setting because we have a whole team. It takes that whole village to make it work. And when you're just doing it one-on-one, it's after a while, it takes its toll. And I think we can, with anything in life, when you're dealing with things, you don't realize that you're sinking and you're just trying to stay afloat. So we hear it all the time, and it's been really harder, I think, with COVID, because I don't know who said it, but I think we all have felt a little isolated. And I can't imagine being a 24/7 caregiver and not getting a chance just to get out and having to be so extra careful. That isolation, I think, has been more profound for people.
I had a comment, Mike, and you know, I always have something to say, is I would imagine this is a huge change, obviously, and one that you were not anticipating having to do quite yet, from what you had said. So it requires time and being patient with yourself. I'm trying to think of, you know, how I would have handled this with my mother, but at the same time that you're getting used to Kathy being in very good care, you know, then it gives you an opportunity. And this happens often when people have passed away, you know, it's like, oh, I don't need to feed anyone. I don't need to do meds anymore, right? So it's the fact that that person isn't there anymore, and you were spending all that time, you know, like you said over there, Jane, and then it allows you at the same time to think, what can I do? What would I like to do now? Even if it's just a deep breath. And it allows you to slowly get back into you. You know what I'm saying? You know, because I'm sure that there was a lot, we all give up a lot of ourself, our time, our interests, our dreams, our hobbies, our work, you know, because of caregiving. So this is it's like a second chance, an opportunity to get a little bit more you out there. You know, that's how I've seen it. I felt that way with my mother when she passed. So now I was back to taking care of one person, and I did go through that. I don't have to do this. Yes, and it's still lonely. You know, even my house, my husband's in one room and I'm over here, you know, but I have managed to find actually lots of things to do on my own, you know, and I'm not lonely. I just kind of made up for lost time, you know, so like a lot of things that I have learned through hospice and grief, it's a process, baby steps, a little bit at a time. And then I think it's still very important to find joy in what you do every day. And maybe just, how can I find joy? Well, joy that she's being cared for in a loving, caring manner, you know, and that you need to feel good about making a good decision to get Kathy over there, you know. So, and I'm also very proud of our team with Dura, and because she's like, she knows what to do, and you know, we don't wait around for things to happen. We do our best to make things happen. And that is by connecting to the right people. So I'm excited about this new chapter for you, Mike, and let us know how things are going. Okay, do you know how to reach us?
Yeah, it's been, you know, mentally, I agree totally with everything you're saying. It's just those emotions that come in.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's better this week than it was the first week.
Yeah.
And so, you know, then I deal with, well, am I being selfish by doing things on my own? And I know that's not right, but still you've got the the mind and the heart competing against each other. But
Yeah.
it is getting better. And I realize it's a process.
You did this out of love, and love always wins.
Amen.
That's what I believe. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Melissa Murphy, hello. I'm so glad you joined us. And I
Hi.
know Taylor's over there too. So, and then somebody down there, Alvarado B. So, but thank you, Melissa, for being here.
Thank you. I was especially, hi Tara, I was especially looking forward to hearing this presentation, and then the one I think in 2 weeks about the grief,
Yeah.
you know. But just to give the ladies that at Silverado that don't know, my mother is in assisted living and she's in North Carolina. My 2 sisters are there local. I go usually about once every 6 weeks and stay for a week or 2 and visit with my mom every day and stay in as long as I can with her. We just were contacted Tuesday that they want to move her to skilled nursing. She has dementia, but she also has a degenerative muscular condition called IBM, inclusion body myositis. So she can no longer stand, walk, and do anything on her own. So I had been emailing Lynn and Jura asking some questions because I know from aides that I'm close with that take care of my mom at the facility. And just hearing other people's experiences that a lot of times when they are moved that they will decline quickly. And so that's my challenge as my family and I are trying to prepare here in Texas to take a vacation before new jobs start and school year start. So we're trying to get them to wait. We've requested that they wait to move my mom until after I get back from my vacation. And I feel a little selfish about that, but I want to be able to be back here in my home and be able to pack my bag and go quickly if I need to go back. And I'm actually considering just going ahead and planning to go to North Carolina as soon as I get back from New Mexico, just to be there and help however I can. My mom, she knows who we are, but her communication has just been declining as how much she communicates and being able to answer some questions, but just not the person she used to be as far as carrying on a conversation. So.
You've already found a place for her?
Yes, the assisted living that she's in, they have skilled nursing. So they just want to move her to the skilled nursing home.
Yeah. And I think just, look for things when you're there about the engagement that yes, the skilled nursing component with the 24-hour nursing, they'll meet those medical changes that are going to be happening with her physiologically. And then make sure her brain is still being stimulated and that she has purpose and joy. Those are so important. Those 2 things have to go hand in hand. Just like we can be perfectly content watching a happy show, but if you're just sitting all day watching show after show, your body isn't happy. So make sure both parts, mind and body and soul and your spirit, are all being stimulated each and every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will try.
Yeah. And it's going to be hard, having that change of scenery, going from inside the same, area in the same company. She might still have the same caregivers.
No, she will not.
No.
No.
So yeah, she may have a little bit of a struggle. I look for setting up her room, something similar. So if her bed faces a particular wall and she has a piece of artwork on that wall in her current bedroom, so each time she looks up, she's used to seeing that picture out of the corner of her right eye. Try to set up the new bedroom similar so that her routine and her visual surroundings stay similar. So, or if it's that she sits up on the side of the bed and that your picture is always there, that's comfort. It is something so tiny and subtle. Most people don't think about, but try to set up, even take pictures of the artwork before they change bedrooms.
Okay.
And try to set it up the same way in the next bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great advice. That's
thank
that's
you.
very valuable.
Even getting up on the different side of the bed, it just like in married couples, if you are always used to sleeping on the left side of the bed, it would rock your world to turn your bed and then you're sleeping still on that same side because that's the window. Well, now you're on the right side of the bed. And in my household, we switch the bedroom around all the time because we have to clean, but you're still always going to be on the left side of the bed. So think about those things when you're changing bedrooms.
Those
Okay.
are good
Thank you.
points. And the other thing is that environment is going to look a little bit different. So in an assisted living side, it's meant and designed to be more like someone's home. So the whole environment's a little less structured maybe and more like a home-like environment. When you get into that nursing home side, it's more clinical because a lot of people are coming out of a hospital setting for rehab, or they're needing that 24/7 more extensive care. So the smells are a little bit different. It's more of a clinical appeal. So I think those were great points, Michelle, and sort of saying personalize her room so it feels like her. It also will help the nurses and the caregivers managing her care to see her more as a person, as an individual, rather than as a patient. It also, by telling her story a bit, is a connection point for the staff with her. And it might be very subliminal where they're not even aware that it's happening, but it works. So those are some things that can make that transition a little bit friendlier for your mom.
Okay.
And sounds in a skilled nursing facility, if they have overhead paging systems, and in the current place that she's at, there's no overhead paging, maybe they have the earbuds, you know, and going to a skilled nursing, that could overstimulate her. So look for, if that is something to look at for her and she gets overstimulated, make sure that that is brought to their attention. Some places have that overhead paging and some don't.
Okay.
The lighting is
The
different.
lighting is different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but one thing too that I think about sometimes with these transitions is that people often say, oh, this transition huge decline, but oftentimes the reason they transition is because they're in a decline.
Mm-hmm.
My husband said that yesterday. He was asking, you know, is it truly that they decline because they're moved, or is it they're being moved because they're declining? And so maybe it's both.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the whole picture.
Yeah, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
But the new environment could
Right.
throw things, or
Mhm.
your room set up different, you can fall, there's the lighting, there's so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when they even transition like from home into our community, there's an adjustment period. And so that's why we work so hard with the engagement piece to kind of get their mind off of that, to give them something that gives them a sense of purpose, which is more effective. And sometimes we see residents going through this transition where they're on the sidelines, they're kind of watching, they're observing, they're trying to figure it out, like, but that, you know, there's a lot of music a lot of times. So that's always works on anybody in any phase of the disease. And then they kind of tweak a little bit more, and maybe then they'll start participating. So it's a process. Some people transition very quickly and others take longer. And we just work with them.
Thank you. Now I see Taylor over here. Taylor, did you want to introduce yourself? Can you hear us? Okay, I'm not sure if we're reaching Taylor. Okay, well, maybe in a little bit.
I
Okay.
wanted to tell a good story about Dura and transitioning. We were working with a family, and they were very nervous about moving into a community. And we were discussing potential things that could change and could happen. And she just took the bull by the horns and helped the gentleman get out of the car. He was coming to the restaurant, and after sat with him throughout his entire meal, enjoyed the presence of his dog, and introduced him to everybody in the welcoming committee. And he started to get a little tired, and the two of them danced down the hallway, sang. He went and took a nap, and when he woke up, it was as if he had always been there. That was one of the fastest transitions and most successful transition we had ever had. But just making sure that your loved one is in the presence of people that can see that heart, and that they can pull it out of them and see what their passions are and their loves are. So thank you to Dura.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another little star for Dura. Yes, thank you. I'm so grateful that you work with us, Dura. Now, I wanted to ask also, can you, like how do you recognize pain, for example, in somebody with dementia or any kind of cognitive issues that can no longer accurately express himself or herself? Some symptoms of discomfort, it can be pain, it could be a sore throat, it can be an itch, it could be whatever, a stiff joint. What do we look for so that the family caregiver, or maybe what does the family caregiver need to do to, address that source of discomfort?
That's a great question. And honestly, in the elderly right now, that's probably the number one thing that gets overlooked and missed is pain. Sincerely, it does. We use, certainly if they can describe their pain, like, oh, this hurts, and they can point to it, they're having pain, but you don't really know the type of pain they're having and how they can, we could describe it. Well, this is a stabbing pain. This is aching. This is, it really hurts when I roll over this side. They're probably not going to be able to use those adjectives and be descriptive. So we use something called a pain ad scale, which is very common in the hospice world. And it's really it's not subjective for the resident. It's actually us looking at the resident, making those decisions based on their respiratory rate. Are they breathing normally, or are they breathing rapid, or are they really shallow? Gives you a big indication on pain. Also too, are they moaning? Are they groaning? Are they holding aside? We can see behaviors increase. So there's 10 bullet points that we actually look at, and you're actually doing an observation of that resident, and you're looking at, so either in these 5 categories, it'll either give you 1, 2, or 3 in these bullet points, and you basically just add it up. So if somebody has, out of these 5, only has 2 bullet points, that's a 2 out of 10. So you can kind of tell that there may be some discomfort, but it's very mild. If you kind of have 5 or 6 bullet points, that's really medium. It's kind of getting up there. And a lot of times you'll have pain medication in place during that assessment that you can give that resident. And then if it's a 10, wow, they've got a very high pain problem. So it's a very helpful tool. Certainly it's subjective on the caregiver's side, but it's doing an observation, it's doing that assessment. And it's pretty darn accurate. I used it all the time with my dementia residents when I was a hospice nurse. And it really helped me kind of get meds prescribed for that patient very effectively. So I use that all the time. In fact, I had a new nurse here who had never heard of it. So I kind of pulled it off and I went through it because she was struggling with, how do I know how much pain they're in?
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you mention some of those points? Because when we're dealing with this, you're the professionals and we're not. Can you mention some of those points, or maybe do you have a form that you offer at Silverado where we could look? Because
Actually, you know what, I'll get that to you. I don't have it on with me right now, but
Yeah, it's
I can get
okay.
that and send
but
that.
you mentioned some of those things that you look for besides the groaning and the quick breathing, or are they breathing quickly, or
Yeah,
if
whether,
pain, are they breathing quickly or slowly?
yes, we can get that out to y'all and get that in.
Definitely. And you're also looking at their history of, you know, how many of us have had a total knee or a broken bone from a car wreck, or that we've got joint pain. Those are things that we can articulate, but the resident may not be able to say that. If they are aggressively pacing and they can't tell you that they hurt, but they are pacing for a reason. They may be searching for something to make it feel better. There's any number of things. Sleep disturbances. We get up in the middle of the night because, oh, my hip hurts. I slept on my shoulder wrong. Same things happen to them, but they just can't say it. You're looking for that grimacing. Like Jane said, that rapid breathing and shallow breathing, or that it's just a deep, heavy, slow breathing, that something is like, something's wrong. I don't feel good. Or it just be something is sharp and painful. The different types of breathing will lead us to believe the depth of the pain. You are making an assumption, but knowing that history from the family of, oh yeah, mom was in a car wreck, you know, or dad had this big scar on his arm. Those things hurt when we get older. I'm in my 50s and dang it, I hurt.
But you're able to express that. And I think what you all are discussing right now on this topic is extremely important, because we've had families that will mention, and they'll have hospice at home, and they say, we don't know why he's making this noise. We don't know why she's doing this, or what. We don't have an answer because we are not educated in this area. So if you have, just like Lynn asked, an article, printout, or some sort of info, that's very beneficial.
Yeah. So starting out with that house questionnaire and the nurse doing an assessment, getting to all the little nuances of what the possibilities of the source of the pain really help. Like Renee, your husband having cancer, the pain can be completely different. If you're talking bone pain or a muscular pain, or I slept wrong and I have a crick in my neck pain, they're all different. Knowing that source helps us figure out what is the first course of action. Something as simple as scheduled round-the-clock Tylenol to take that edge off and not be a PRN. You can't schedule, you can't look at the PRNs are your as needed. You can't wait for someone with dementia to start and I say a behavior, and a behavior is an unmet need. They are trying to tell you something, whether it be through pacing, moaning, diverting their gaze, they're looking for something. Those are behaviors, that is the tag word for it, but those are things telling you, hey, pay attention. I have something going on. But starting with something as simple as Tylenol, take that edge off, you may see the facial expressions change, the shoulders come down, the breathing becomes normalized, the pacing becomes more
Not manic, but
not manic type of a pacing, correct?
they might eat better.
Yes.
So all of them fit in, and we will get that. We'll get that to you, because it is just so vital to do that assessment. The other thing is, most of our residents are elderly, so they played hard on their joints. So I don't think I have one person that doesn't come through with having osteoarthritis as one of their diagnoses. And so there are times that you're going to have an inflammatory response. And scheduling that Tylenol is one of the most effective things. So we do that with a lot of people, and actually can dose up fairly high consistently, and that's better than putting them on a bunch of antipsychotics. Now, sometimes they need those as well, but that's sort of probably a different problem with the dementia. So yeah, that's very important, and it's often missed. The other thing too, somebody falls. It's just, that hurts them, and it can just can take the wind out of their sails for a bit. And so sometimes the pain is maybe something that we monitor and manage for a 2-week period and then taper off, because that's from an acute injury. And it may be not that they didn't break a bone or anything else, but it's just upset them, and it's created a lot of anxiety for that individual, but they're hurting. So all of these things get taken into account and looked at for consideration.
Well, think about just day in, day out things that, we played a hard basketball game or a hard volleyball game, you're going to hurt. Or going to HEB and you trip over that concrete thing that's supposed to stop the car because we can't see it. It blends in with the bottom with the bifocals and trifocals, and you trip over that. You're gonna hurt when you go down. So we look at those things, keeping them well hydrated, and good nutritious meals. You have to stay ahead of those things to make sure that they're happy and comfortable. Finding the right physician and getting a proper diagnosis, and the proper medications, like Jane was alluding to, that will make a big difference. If it's an improper diagnosis or just too much of a blanket diagnosis, and a behavior starts, then the physician may prescribe, oh, this will help that. And then the next doctor says, oh, well, let's go up, or let's add this other thing. By the time we see them and we're going through the discovery process and asking, tell us about a typical day, tell us about, how things have been going for the last 6 months, we quickly find out, holy moly, all the wrong medications, wrong diagnosis, just by a family member telling us, well, this is what they do. She'll look away. I think she must hear something. Those subtle clues help us get to a better diagnosis, and help them find the proper medications to be on. Less is more. You don't need a med on top of a med on top of a med. Get rid of a lot of it, and I agree. Some of it's proper, and some of it's not.
Thank you. Like I said, I have a lot of questions, so please, anybody else have another question out there? Because I do.
No, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I hear a lot from families, Michelle, especially that are struggling with mid-stage dementia, it's not quite to the point where they feel like they're not successful at home. And I start talking to them about what their options are. And they tend to give a lot of pushback and say, well, it's just not time. They don't need memory care. Right. So I know my response to that, but what answer that for people that when they do see this video and they're wondering when's a good time to consider memory care. I always say, just like hospice, the sooner the better, because they have a better opportunity to be engaged. So if you want to address that, that would be great.
Great question. So as we're talking with families and they're going through a typical day, then, we're hearing all the red flags of mom left something in the microwave, or the popcorn was burnt, or the stovetop was left on, or she just went down to, the neighbor's house. My ears are ringing, and I go, and I've used this for years. What does ready look like? Does ready look like that we're at the emergency room, or that we've had to take the car away because mom kept driving off, or dad got lost? What does ready look like? And that's when you see the light bulb go off for the family of, holy moly, we're in a dangerous situation, that we're really taking too many chances that I can't manage. When a family often tells me, well, I've put those locks up on the top of the door and she can't reach it. Oh, she'll figure out a way. Short people figure out ways. Short people figure out ways, and they get the broom, and the broom pops that hook up, and next thing you know, they're down, down the block, and you don't know where they are. And you don't know when they're going to do that. It could be 107 degrees outside, like it's going to be today, or it could be 20 in February in this weird ice storm, and they have no socks and shoes on, or they have the parka on and it's 100 degrees outside. They will figure out a way to do, harm, but it's not intentional, of course. It's just, there's just no safety awareness. So great question. It's, what does ready look like to you, and what risks are you willing to take? Ursula.
I have a question. How do you overcome when families say, when you tell them, what does ready look like? What kind of answers do you get? And how do you rebuttal that? It's just very hard for families to accept it's time.
Yeah, oftentimes it is a long silence of them processing the information of what their realization of sorting through the day of, oh my gosh, that could have happened. And just giving them the respectful amount of time, and then let's sort through each of those scenarios that you've already had to deal with. I'll give you an example. We were working with a gentleman for well over 6 months, and we've all taken phone calls. We give our cell phone out to everybody. And many of time the phone calls at 11 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, and she's wandered off again. And the neighbors are so kind, and all the neighbors know her, and they always bring her back. And are you going to stamp down that your neighbors are going to be there 24 hours a day awake to make sure that someone brings her back to the house? And I said, they sleep, they go on vacation, they go to work, they're in the backyard with the dog and having a barbecue. They're not in the front yard watching for your wife. That was a hard realization.
Yeah.
And he stayed at home and had a couple of caregivers. And then the day that she loves the caregiver and ran down the street chasing their truck because she didn't want them to go. And he's inside the house. Caregivers looking in the rear view mirror, stops, turns around, let's go back to the house. But what if they didn't?
Right. She would have kept running after. And was that the turning point for them? I mean, that's an extreme scenario, but there's times where you see that families need help, not only for memory care, hospice, home health.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for families to accept the help when it's needed, because we can see, and this is why I ask, how do you overcome those rebuttals, those obstacles before you reach a situation like this?
You have to.
One of the most, I'm going to jump in, Michelle, real quick, if that's okay on that. I think one of the most important things you can do is lead somebody down their own path of understanding. And so it's starting from the beginning. If that looks like, tell me about 12 months ago when you first started to notice whatever that is. Yeah. Tell me about 6 months ago. Tell me about yesterday. Now let's look into the future as tomorrow, 6 months from now, a year from now. If this is the changes that you just told me in 12 months, let's think about the changes that we know are going to be coming. And what is the best opportunity for you to set your loved one up for success? And not, people are not made to deal with dementia. It is unlike any other disease out there. We are not meant to do it alone. We need trained professionals who can help stimulate the mind of our loved one, who can make sure they're getting healthy meals that are made to keep them brain healthy, brain strong. They need engagements and activities, and they need supervision to be safe. But you can't tell somebody that, right? They have to come to that realization on their own. And how they do that is asking those questions. The more questions you ask, you're helping them understand on their own. Oh yeah, and then repeat that. So you just told me that she got lost going to the mailbox and went to the wrong house. Now, and repeat those and let them say, what could have, ask them, what do you think could have happened? And then once they come to that realization and that conclusion on their own, it's a very different progression of understanding, and then a desire to, when I worked at Silverado, I used to sit, we had a big glass wall behind us where I would talk to the families, and I would point back and I would say, because you could look out and see all our residents having wine and dancing and having a great time. And I would say, as great as that is, as much fun as they are having, not a single person wanted to move in here, and not a single loved one wanted to make the decision to place the person they love in a secured environment. But by the grace of God, when we were needed, we were here. And we are able to help people. And I would see shoulders when they come in and they couldn't breathe. And then all of a sudden, by the time they met the team and they saw the residents having fun and we answered their questions, and on their own, they got there, their shoulders, they were breathing. And that's the beginning of your life and your loved one's life getting better. The hardest decision is making that first step into that memory care. The best decision is when you step out and you allow the professionals to take over. Sorry.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Instead of a conversation, ask a couple questions and let them lead themselves into that process of, okay, this could have happened. And I ask this because we have a couple of clients who have dementia, either vascular. I think Dura, you're working with her, with one of them. Others is Alzheimer's, and so it's just very helpful.
And oftentimes families look at the breaking point of their physical or mental inabilities. Well, once it gets to this point, then I'm ready to say it's time. So then look at your loved ones moving in process. Set them up so that they can be successful and enjoy their setting, not when it's so late in the disease process.
And I had a comment to add, and this is something that I learned through experience, but it kind of like, so with my own family, and I have asked a question of family caregivers, why or for whom, I can't even formulate the question now. When we present obstacles, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Well, for whom are you doing this or not doing this? Is this for your loved one? Or is this for yourself? Because you yourself are emotionally involved and cannot let go. And to put it very, very clearly, my aunt, decades ago, when we lost her mother, my grandmother, in 1978, my aunt was just beyond devastated. My grandmother hadn't passed away yet, but my aunt, she was the youngest of 5, my dad's little sister, she just was, oh my gosh, she was losing her marbles because she was so heartbroken. It just couldn't bear the thought. So she said, a priest said to my aunt, why do you, and my aunt had stomach cancer. From what I've heard, is very painful and horrible. That's what I've heard. So my grandmother was suffering a tremendous amount. So my aunt was saying, oh, she was crying, please don't go, Mom, please, God, keep her here, keep her here. So this priest told my aunt, why do you want to keep your mother here in such misery? She is suffering
pain.
so much. Let her go. Let her go. It is what's best for your mother. And that just put it into perspective. Do you know, my mother, I mean, my aunt was devastated for 2 years after that. She wore sunglasses because she cried every day. She had lived with her mother for about 20 or 30 years before that, but it was still heartbreaking. But my aunt was then able to focus on my grandmother, not my aunt's feelings, not her own feelings. And she said, okay, intellectually, I can let go. You know, it is time. I don't want her to continue suffering. And that to me makes a lot of sense now, because these are very, very emotional decisions that we as family caregivers need to make, but they're not for us. What is best for a loved one? And when my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in 2007, around Christmas time, we focused on what was best for him, not what we wanted. We wanted him well, of course, but we focused on what we felt. We crash course in cancer and whatever else we needed to find out. What's best for our loved one? And if we focus on that, that decision can become a little bit less painful, less guilty about we're doing what, according to the guidance of professionals, what we need to do for our loved one to have the best care now, you know, and that helped us tremendously.
And what often comes up is the statement, I promised that I would never do this. Yeah. And I hear that almost every time we sit down with a family. And you have to make that hard decision that, yes, there's this promise, but what was the vision of where they were going to go? Was it, you know, a place that had low ceilings and poor lighting and everybody's yelling and screaming and there's restraints? And is it that horrible image of, oh, I don't want to go there? Well, heck, nobody wants to. So do that shopping ahead of time so that you're not in a panic mode trying to find what's best for them, and that you also know is best.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd say too, during the support groups that I do, I have yet to hear anybody saying, oh, I did this too soon. I've never heard that. I've heard people say we should have done this sooner, or I'm glad I did it when I did. Yeah.
I think that as a family caregiver, and most of us are not trained to be family caregivers, you know, we just kind of are thrown into it, and not everybody's a medical person. So I know I certainly am not. But so I always encourage family caregivers to educate themselves on the conditions that they're dealing with, so they have a realistic expectation of what's going on now. To go to the doctor, you need to get information from reliable websites like Mayo Clinic or WebMD or NIH. Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's Texas, you know, those reliable, reputable organizations. Ask Jura, ask, you know, the Silverado team, ask, you know, Comfort Keepers, and so that they're reliable. But to learn about what we're dealing with, you know, and then to find out, we can put you in touch. That's one of the missions at Caregiving Cafe, is to put the families in touch with resources out there. Inform yourself about the different levels. Like you mentioned, it's not all nursing homes, it's many different levels and they're not all smelly, horrible places. You know, they're
Amen
actually,
to that.
you know, beautiful. I mean, there's many places I would have moved into, you know, if I could, and still be healthy. You know, so it's education and also information about what's out there that helps us to be a better family caregiver.
Absolutely.
And the other thing too is, you know, we understand because we talk with a variety of people, different backgrounds, different cultures, that this is a grief process, and it's everybody will grieve differently at different times. And I think Madison was right on the money. I've never heard a family, I would mostly say they said we should have done this before. And it's like, you can't beat yourself up. You've just got to say, you just focus on the positive, where their loved one is, you know, how they look today. Are we meeting the goals? And it's got to be that shared thing between any kind of community, your staff, a caregiver, a family member. And so if we've got to be all on the same page. And so you're right, that education piece is huge. And so many people feel guilty. But again, asking, and Michelle does this great in Discovery, is what is your breaking point? What would it take? And we do see all the red flags. I had a gentleman one time who was far more advanced than what the family presented us. And they lived on a golf course, and he was used to just taking the golf buggy out and going and doing his rounds. The man could not swim. And he actually fell into trying to get his ball out of the water. And all I'm thinking in my head is that I could have drowned. And they looked for hours trying to find him. And it was like, this was in Sugar Land, and it was in the middle of summer, of course. They had to put him in the ER and hydrate him and all this kind of stuff for a bit and got him home. But his wife was still kind of wondering if this was the right time. And when I kind of brought up his fear, the resident's fear had always been about drowning. He'd had a big thing, that's why he couldn't swim. And I said, well, we were talking about this. I said, oh, with all those, he could drown. And when I said that, that was when she said, I'm moving him in. So you never know at what point, the reality will hit for somebody, but she just wanted him safe. But I knew when we were talking to him that he was further along in the disease process, and we were expecting something different. But we got him to a really good place. And he never brought up golf one time. And that was her biggest worry, because that's what he had done since he retired. So sometimes I think I hear family members saying, is there what they worry about in keeping that loved one happy isn't really what that resident's really going to remember. It's funny. I mean, we hear that a lot. So I know it's really that listening and that encouragement, and asking, like, what is it going to take to sort of keep everybody safe? And I think everybody wants that safety factor for their loved one.
Absolutely.
Okay, I do have another question, and I'm thinking of the other family caregivers who have had to deal with things, agitation. If somebody, one is, how can we more effectively keep things calm? And if somebody does get agitated, what are some tactics to calm that person down?
First, trying to narrow down what is the source of the agitation. It could be that you've got the music is too loud, or it's not the music that they like. Turn it off, turn it down, whatever, find the music that they like. Is it pain? Is it that they're hungry? Is it that they want to go for a walk? So instead of saying, no, let's not do a walk, no, let's not do that, it's not worth it to argue. It's not worth it to say no, no, no. Just go for a walk, go out the door, walk around the house, walk down the street, and walk on back. You satisfied that urge and that feeling that I need to be doing something different. You end up sorting through and going through sometimes 10 different things to find the source of the agitation. It could be that they have a rock in their shoe or a little pebble, and you can't see it, but they're grimacing and they're limping and they're mad that they can't figure out, what it is. Let's sort through. You keep working through head to toe what it could possibly be, that source of agitation. It could be that the dog is barking. We'll put the dog outside. It could be, I wanted a grilled cheese sandwich and you gave me meatloaf. I'm going to be mad. I don't want meatloaf. Who knows? But sorting through, being patient, enter their world where they are. If they're saying there's somebody out to get me, then tell me more about it. What are we looking at? What are we hearing? Can you describe it to me? Or when they're looking at the window, is there panic? Is there fear? What is the expression? Trying to redirect them. If they're saying, I want to go home, home could be any number of things. It's a whole new conversation when someone's saying, I want to go home. It's tell me more about it. Hey, let's go look for. And you start walking a different direction. You've redirected. You started a whole new conversation. And no longer by the end of the conversation are we talking about the house in St. Louis. It's you've walked back to their apartment and you're talking about all of their books and their decorations and their clothes. And oh, I'm home. It's just because there's that memory of stuff. So there's any number of things with
And I
agitation.
think kind of what Michelle said about meeting them where they're at. So oftentimes we'll have people, it's a delusion. So they'll say something like, that man, he's so scary and he keeps following me. I hear that a lot from our ladies. And so I'll kind of match that energy. Well, that's just wrong. And I'm going to check the cameras and I'm going to call the police. And then now that I've met them, then I can get them to kind of match my demeanor. So then we're here. And then now I'm kind of calm and I'm really calm. And you know what? I'm so glad you told me and we got this figured out. Let me worry about it. And then we move on to distract after that. So kind of honoring that emotion and then helping them bring it down.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, some of these, like I said, my husband has pain. He doesn't have dementia. But a lot of these tactics, they do work on other people, not just on dementia. Because he's in such horrible pain, he can get snippy from time to time, and I mentioned before, it took me 2 years to figure out that when he was nitpicking everything I do, I couldn't do anything right. It's because he could not handle the pain, but it took me 2 years. So I want to save everybody a lot of time, and but those little things, those little what's out of order, what's different today, why is he acting like this? And that is often, at least in my situation, a clue that something is amiss. And then you go down and try to figure out what's what, so, but thank you.
And I think often what we do, we ask a million questions and you don't want to bombard them with a million questions. If it's about lunchtime, then instead of just saying, well, what do you want to eat? Let's go eat lunch and present lunch instead of having them have to figure out, what do I want to eat? And they can't articulate. Then they're agitated because they can't tell you, I want a hot dog or I want a hamburger or I want something. Let's just go eat. And just present things sometimes.
Yeah, fewer choices. I learned a lot from my mom, and when she sat down over here, she came down from Maryland, and I've said this before, she was used to always a proper place setting and whatever, but I counted, she had 13 different things around her plate, and when she sat down and I just let her, okay, Mom, you want 3 hot sauces, you want this and that and the water, and and when she sat down, that's exactly what she did. She goes, and I said, what's the matter, Mom? And she goes, I don't know where to begin.
Too much.
So yeah, I learned next time I served her the portions on her plate. I took away half the things, and that she cleaned her plate.
Yeah.
So it was a learning experience. Yeah, exactly. I was so happy. So, and she wanted to be able to see her dessert. I think she thought she wasn't going to get it. So I brought it next. I said, Mom, it's there, but you can't touch it till you eat your food. She goes, wow. We use humor a lot, but you know what? She was happy, and I was happy too that she ate. So anyway, yeah, we need to meet them where they are, and we have to figure it out because we can't always tell what that is. So I think that family caregivers are detectives. We're the greatest jugglers, ambassadors to the UN, and sleuth. We have to figure out so much and keep it in our mental Rolodex to find, pull out, oh yeah, this is what I do,
And sometimes it works today.
Yeah.
It won't work tomorrow. So be flexible, be ready that you're not going to knock it out of the park every single time. You may get it right 5 out of 10 times. Woo-hoo, you did it. But keep trying. Don't give up.
Yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom besides the practical things, like to the caregiver? Because a lot of times as caregivers, they forget. I made it a habit of patting myself on the back, like I used to mow the lawn. Something I said I would never do. Never. That's my husband's job, but he can't do it. So I pat myself on the back. I'm like, wow, come on, everybody, come admire what I just did. Okay, besides the grass grows so fast that tomorrow it'll be long again. So come look. And I would step back and admire what I had done. Now, I don't know that everybody does that, but as a family caregiver, you really need to celebrate your triumphs and to give yourself credit for what you have done every day, every week, every month, sometimes every hour. You managed to finish peeling a carrot. I gave myself credit with the second child when I had my baby. I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually finished literally peeling that carrot, So anything that you can remind caregivers that, recognize their own accomplishments.
Yeah, we do the happy dance a lot. And the happy dance is, things that are so simple that you're able to have someone sit through a meal, or they got through 50% of the meal, or you put soup in a mug and because they're on the move, that they were able to finish the soup versus sitting and trying to do soup with a spoon. That's hard for some people. Celebrate everything, as little as it is. And it could be something as just a simple little happy dance, or it's a woohoo, whatever it may be, or treat yourself with a cookie. I mean, any number of things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, caregivers at home, when their loved one kind of are losing the language part, and they get really frustrated.
Yeah.
An aha moment for me when I first started the dementia piece was I would remember, I have 2 sons, and my oldest one was just always really easy, and my second one could kind of get really frustrated easily if I couldn't understand what it was that he wanted. So I learned very easily what worked well, so that if we get a temper tantrum, I'd say, will you show mommy? And so I started doing that with some of my residents, especially at home with dementia when I was a hospice nurse. Can you show me? And they knew exactly what they wanted, and they would walk me into something and show me, and it was something completely different than what the daughter thought we needed to do or what I was thinking was going on. And it was really simple. It was like they wanted a certain kind of cookie and the daughter had given them ice cream, which was their favorite. But they saw these cookies come in the house and it was what the cookie wanted. And it was like setting World War III off in this household. So sometimes, again, bringing that resident into the fold of, can you show me? And sometimes they can go and show you, and it really can make your life a lot easier as well. And you're going, okay, because we'll overthink things for them. And I like that approach because it's about them, their journey, and we're giving them a little bit of dignity and respect in that approach.
And in that simple statement of show me, it may be them getting out of that room and going to the next room. Maybe they don't end up showing you anything, but that's a distraction. And now they've de-escalated because they're into a new space. They forgot, just like a lot of us do, well, I forgot why I went into the kitchen. It's like, I came in here for something and I'm gonna look around and figure out what I came into the kitchen for. But it just could be a simple distraction.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
I think something else too for the caregivers that we talked about a lot in social work and school, and maybe you guys have heard it before, but I think it's so true that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it takes to fill up your own cup so you can, better give, just that self-care piece is incredibly important. And that's kind of a buzzword right now, but it's true. I mean, you have to take care of yourself. However that looks, and sometimes kind of like you mentioned, Lynn, it might just be taking a deep breath.
Go for a walk.
Yeah, going for a walk, just listening to some good music, simple or, as big as taking a nice vacation and kind of relinquishing that care to someone else if you can.
And on that topic, I'm going to add, like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. Maybe who you're caring for, even if you were full, you might be a little cup and they might be a big cup.
Good point.
So sometimes it's okay to accept help, not because you're incompetent, but because you're a little cup, and that's as much as you can give and they need more.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Point. Yeah. And I always think that accepting help is a smart thing to do.
It is.
A practical thing to do. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. As long as that help is what you need it to be, and if it isn't, then you find something else that is adequate. Because a lot of people have wonderful intentions, but they may not be able to do it. It takes flexibility on the part of the caregiver, as long as your loved one is the priority, because he or she may need something in a specific manner. But accept the help. I always say yes. The only right answer to that is yes, and then you can figure out what, So like with my husband, his pain, his entire body is in pain, and we don't shake hands or you can't touch him, So the first thing I say, we're used to shaking hands. Nope, I say his hands hurt. So we just wave, and that's fine, So just to focus on whatever it is that your loved one needs and make that the priority.
And you brought up something very important, that he hurts. So similar with my dad, he did not want to take showers because the feel of the water hitting him, he was able to tell me it hurts. The water is too hot, too cold, and I'm feeling the water. It feels good to me, but to him, it was too hot, too cold, or it hurt. So the magic for him was the gabapentin, and it dulls those nerve endings. And then we were finally, after a couple of weeks, we were able to do a shower, changed out instead of a shower head, got the handle so that he could control it where he wanted and had it close to his body instead of it being far away and it felt like needles. simple changes like that, recognizing and acknowledging his pain, trying to find a right medication for it, but then making adaptations in the shower, then we were able to get a shower.
Yes, yes, very true. Thank you.
Yeah.
Adapting, flexibility, all of those are really important components of what I call successful caregiving. They also make it less frustrating for the family caregiver, and of course, for our loved ones, receiving that care.
And pick your battles with, caregivers that come into the home. And I tried to get caregivers to come in to do the shower for me, and that was going to be a good relief for me. Dad was like, no, I'm not going to have that girl, help me with a shower. Well, then a guy, no, I don't want a guy. No, my daughter will give me a shower. So then it was, okay, so for him, if that was not going to be where we were going to have the support to come into the home, it was going to be someone coming in to clean the house. Well, that was a big help for me. If I could let that go as the care provider at the home, then yes, then I have time to help do your shower. Or cutting the grass. We have 4 acres. I love to cut the grass, but I would always break the mower. So it was like, Dad, I broke the mower again. And even though I enjoyed cutting the grass, it was, you have to pay someone to come cut the grass, which saved me an entire day. Then I had other time to do things that he wanted me to do. So pick your battles of, you think going into it, I'm going to have someone come in and, cook for mom and dad. Well, then they don't cook the same way that you do. So find what works, get the support in your home that is good for you and your loved one. And then hopefully it's a good match.
Yes, thank you. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? No, this is your chance.
You got good questions, Lynn. Keep going.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let me see. I always have lots of questions.
I love your questions. They're good.
Well, and Dawn, did you have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
It's probably a simple one. My wife has developed a habit of chewing. Unfortunately, she likes to chew on her oxygen cannula and her CPAP cushion, and she can really chew. I tell you, she's got a strong set of teeth. But I've tried all sorts of substitutes to give her for something else to chew on. She chews on her blanket. I decided, well, that's all right. Blankets are disposable, but I haven't been able to figure out how to wear out her chewer so she doesn't chew up everything.
That's a good question.
Now, somebody has suggested that that's probably something she's doing out of either boredom or something like that. But, she doesn't do it as much when I'm with her. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
Could it also be anxiety?
Yeah.
Could be some of that.
And it's a learned, after a while, it'll be a learned behavior. So someone that starts off moaning of, and then it gets louder and then louder, it's a learned behavior. So try to substitute in, like you said, the boredom, substituting in something different, change the scenery, go outside, try something of music, headsets. I like the suggestion Ursula where you said the anxiety, finding that source of the problem.
I'm trying to remember, I was just racking my brain here. I did have a resident one time that did that chewing thing, and they actually put a mouth guard in. And then they didn't really like that. They didn't know how to get that out, so they stopped doing it. I don't know if that.
Say again what it was?
Like a sports mouth guard.
Oh, okay.
And they actually it was a dentist recommendation for a totally different reason, but she didn't really like it, but she didn't know how to take it out, but it stopped chewing. So I don't know if that would work or not. I mean, it would be worth a try, I guess, but I would think maybe getting her a little bit more relaxed and then changing the environment, something in the environment. So it might get her a little bit calmer. You could try that. It sounds like it could be more anxiety when it's worse when you're not there. So she may be frightened, like, where are you, not understanding.
And we had a resident that would grind their teeth, and it was anxiety driven. So when we would start to hear the grinding noise, then I knew I would look around and see what it could possibly be that could be setting her off. And then we would separate from that noise factor, or it was just too busy. There were too many people walking by, too much commotion. It was usually right before a party. And there was just too much hustle and bustle. So we would remove ourselves from that situation. She's able to, we talk through it, and then she'd recognize, oh, I didn't realize I was doing it. Just bringing it to her attention, she was able to stop that behavior.
Now, my dad was a dentist, so I'm wondering, so we kind of focused on teeth. Could she have some kind of either a small cavity, maybe a little bit of pain, some sensation in her teeth, gums that might be bothering her? Has anybody looked at her teeth, or her gums, her tongue? Her
Well, I was going to say, I've talked to 2 different dentists with the idea that they might be able to help with this, but neither one of them had any answers.
But can they, but somebody at where she is, could somebody look, like maybe a nurse or a attendant or a CNA or something, just look in her mouth? Can they do that and just check for the cheeks, check under the tongue, check her teeth? Does she have bleeding gums? Does she have bad breath that could indicate cavity, decay? Just to take a look. They might find a little sore, maybe. Just to take a look.
Or dry mouth. It could be dry mouth. Just substitute, give her get a cup of water and see if that helps.
Yeah, okay, good ideas.
I would ask her community to take a look, and I don't know, just find a way to I don't know how you're gonna do it, but I would do it. You can pick it. Yeah. So you can just say, oh, you got such beautiful teeth. Let me check them out. Oh my God. Whatever, and then she said she doesn't talk very much, right?
She doesn't talk at all.
Yeah.
You said she sang, so start singing, and so she's opening her mouth, and you grab a flashlight or your flashlight, and she's
that note.
and you're
hold that note.
just like
I will do it.
Just like babies are always teething, if they're teething, they're chewing on something because it feels better on the gums when you're chewing on something. I agree with Lynn that something could be wrong inside the oral cavity with the things are out of alignment. Yeah. So definitely. I would
also pay attention to see if she's chewing like one side versus another, or the front teeth or the back molars, just to kind of, if it's always in the same place, like if she's going always on her right side, going, or is she all over the place?
Pretty much in the middle, but yeah.
Okay, but I wonder if that changes, because if it's the same place, I would be curious about whether there's a particular place that is bothering her. Maybe she's chipped a tooth, or a crack. So anyway.
Well, it's been going on for more than a year, so it's not just a short-term thing, but
oh my
anyhow,
goodness.
like I say, I've tried a lot of different things. I even bought her some jewelry.
Don, you get a gold star for being so creative, Don.
It's a necklace that you can chew on.
Do you like it? Did she chew it?
If I give it to her, she will. You know, if I see her chewing on her cannula, I'll say, wait a minute, let me give you this. I'll substitute the jewelry. She'll chew on it for a few minutes at least.
Oh my God, well, I hope her cannula still works.
She's chewed up several of them. We have a good supply of replacements, so.
Yeah.
And you know, something like the nasal cannula, that can be very drying. The oxygen can be very drying for the resident. Making sure that you're adding some humidifying that air can help. And sometimes it just gets annoying having that in your nose. So sometimes even just taking that out for a little bit and then putting it back in, it can just be one of those things that gets annoying. Lubrication. Yeah, little lubrication. So don't put Vaseline up, but there's other lubricants you can actually put in that are.
Yeah, we have air to give her, AYR. You familiar with that? It's a saline gel.
Yeah.
I need to work on them, get them to keep using more of that on their nose.
And you know, it could be that if she's chewing on a particular thing that she's telling you, I don't like this. That could be it too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Said Dawn, try all those different things. I'm sorry, you still haven't resolved that issue. So
Yeah. You heard it before, haven't you?
yeah. So anybody else have any other questions or comments? All right, because it's 5 to 12, so we want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if you have no other questions,
I'd just like to close out by saying, you know, lean on us, just like I've said at the beginning. We give out our cell phone numbers, and if you have questions and you're just stuck on something that you just need to bounce it off and get fresh perspective, let us help you. Not everybody is a fit for Silverado, but we're a resource for you. And I'm glad that Ursula's putting together that resource guide, because things change in the industry. Places go away and places, you know, new places open up and new people move from other areas of the nation and move around, and they are a brand new resource for us and a wealth of information. So keeping that updated is super important, but we're here for everybody as a partner in the industry.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And we appreciate your time immensely for coming to talk to us today. In the next few days, I will send out a link, and I'll let you know. It will include, you know, the link to our YouTube channel. And also, Caregiving Cafes is here for anybody who wants connection or an ear to listen to, or a bad joke or resources, or, you know, we're here as well. So thank you. All right, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. I'm sorry we couldn't speak to two of the attendees, but I'm glad that everybody was here. And oh, there you are, Melissa. I hope everything goes well with your mother and that you have a wonderful vacation, and good luck with the job and school. And let me tell you, you know, I think I have PTSD from my kids being in school. I love school and everything, but I packed their lunches since they were 3. When my son was 3, he just turned 34. And my daughter graduated from high school in 2013. So that's like for 23 years, I packed lunches, fresh salads, you name. Oh my gosh, I never had to think so hard. When my daughter graduated from high school, oh man, I was so happy. No more lunches, you know. So
You can be my mom.
yeah. Oh, I loved it. You know, and soups, homemade soups in a big fat thermos. Because my son got used to hot meals for lunch. I started to give him a cheese sandwich, you know, and no, I gotta do this and an appetizer and fruit and dessert and you know, so I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was like, so every time when school starts again, I'm like, oh no. I said,
Well,
no.
it's different when they're grown. So
Yeah.
So I wish y'all well. And so anyway, thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Melissa,
Thank you.
With with your mother, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, John, for being here. All right, and we'll all be in touch. And again, thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to Dura and whatever, True Heart Hospice, and everybody who was here today. Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.